I was Sarah Jensen, 29 years old, living a pretty straightforward life in Richmond, Virginia. My days were usually a blend of managing construction projects for a local firm and cherishing quiet evenings at my small row house in the Fan District. I believed in honesty, in showing up for people, and in doing good work. I wasn't the loudest voice in any room, but I always prided myself on being reliable, on being someone you could count on, someone who kept her word. My world felt steady, built on a foundation of trust with my friends, my family, and my colleagues. I had a small, close-knit group of friends, and among them was Chloe, someone I had known since college. Our friendship, like many long-standing ones, had its ups and downs, but I always thought we had a shared understanding, a certain loyalty. I was mistaken. My stable world began to crack on a Tuesday afternoon. We had a girls' weekend trip planned, something we had been looking forward to for months, a much-needed escape to the Outer Banks. But that morning my father had a sudden, severe stroke. The call from my mom was frantic, the details blurry through her tears, but the message was clear. He was in the emergency room, it was serious, and I needed to get there immediately. I texted the group chat, a quick message typed with trembling fingers saying, "Hey everyone, so incredibly sorry, but I have to cancel the trip last minute. Major family emergency, will explain more later, so gutted to miss out." My heart was heavy, torn between my dad and the disappointment of letting my friends down, but there was no choice. I expected understanding, maybe a few sympathetic messages. What I got instead was Chloe's immediate reply, "Sure." That single word, dripping with sarcasm, felt like a cold splash of water. Then came the deluge. "Honestly, Sarah, this is just so typical. You always exaggerate things for sympathy. Remember that time in college when you sprained your ankle right before our final presentation and still managed to go out dancing that night? It's always something with you, isn't it? Always a drama, always needing attention." The messages kept coming, a barrage of accusations, twisting old memories, painting me as manipulative and dishonest. I saw the awkward laughing emojis from some of the others, the stunned silence from others. My stomach dropped to my feet. My dad was fighting for his life, and my supposed friend was publicly tearing my character apart. I tried to explain, to type out the truth about my father, about the stroke, about the fear gripping my chest. But with every sentence I wrote, Chloe would immediately screenshot it and repost it with some snarky comment like, "Oh, here we go, another chapter of Sarah's sob story," or "See, told you she loves the spotlight." It was a public execution of my reputation, and I was utterly helpless to stop it. I felt the hot flush of shame and anger, quickly followed by a crushing sense of despair. What was the point? She wasn't listening. She just wanted to perform for the others, so I stopped. I muted the chat, took actual screenshots of the entire vicious exchange, every word, every emoji, every timestamp, and just let it sit. My problem was no longer just my father's health. It was the gaping wound of betrayal, the public smear on my character, and the agonizing question of how to ever mend something so thoroughly broken. I was left feeling unsatisfied and powerless, watching Chloe, my nemesis, poison my well of friendships. In the days and weeks that followed, I tried to pick up the pieces, both of my father's recovery and my fractured social life. My dad's stroke was severe, leaving him with significant challenges, and my focus was entirely on him, on helping my mom, on navigating the scary world of physical therapy and doctor's appointments. Every time I thought about the group chat, a knot tightened in my stomach. I tried to reach out to Chloe once, a short, calm text explaining the reality of my dad's condition. Her response was chillingly dismissive. "Look, Sarah, I get it, you're going through a lot, but you can't blame me for being skeptical when you pull this kind of thing all the time. Maybe reflect on why people react that way instead of always playing the victim." She implied I was seeking more sympathy, even in the face of genuine tragedy. It felt like a punch to the gut. I reached out to a couple of our mutual friends, quietly explaining the truth, hoping they would understand. One gave a sympathetic but non-committal reply saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Sarah, I hope your dad is okay, it's just, things got a little heated." The other simply didn't respond. The silence from the rest of the group was deafening. It confirmed my worst fears. Chloe's narrative had taken root. I started to notice a subtle shift. Invitations to group outings became less frequent, or I would only hear about them secondhand. When I did see some of our friends, conversations were strained, eyes darting away and awkwardness hanging in the air. I felt like I was walking around with a scarlet letter, labeled a liar and an attention seeker, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they believed it. I felt profoundly isolated, not just from Chloe, but from a whole segment of my social world. The problem hadn't just grown bigger, it had metastasized, consuming my sense of belonging and even making me question my own worth. Had I somehow unconsciously pushed people away? Was there a grain of truth in Chloe's venom? The self-doubt was a relentless whisper, amplifying my loneliness. The lowest point came during my dad's rehabilitation. We were celebrating a small milestone. He had managed to walk a few steps with assistance, and I shared the news cautiously in a different, smaller chat with some other friends, none of whom were part of the infamous group. One of them, bless her heart, mentioned, "Oh, I remember Chloe saying something about your dad being sick, but she made it sound like, well, you know." The implication hung heavy in the air. "She said you were prone to dramatics." It wasn't malicious, just an innocent comment, but it felt like a fresh stab wound. Chloe's poisoned words had seeped into other circles, spreading her twisted version of me. My integrity, my most valued trait, was actively being questioned even among those who hadn't witnessed the initial attack. It became clear that no amount of explaining, no amount of being the bigger person was going to undo the damage she had done. I couldn't clear my name, I couldn't force an apology. I was trapped in a narrative created by someone else's malice, and every effort I made to fight it only seemed to reinforce her accusations of me being dramatic. I felt utterly defeated, stripped of my dignity, and truly alone in the fight to protect my character. I stared at those screenshots on my phone, the undeniable proof of Chloe's cruelty, and a cold resolve settled over me. I wasn't sure what I would do with them or if I would ever do anything at all, but I knew I couldn't just delete them. They were a testament to her betrayal, a silent promise that I wouldn't forget. I put them away, tucked deep within my phone's photo library, a dormant weapon waiting for a moment I couldn't yet imagine. I had gone as low as I could go, certain that all was lost regarding my reputation among that group, convinced that Chloe had won. Months passed. My dad slowly, painstakingly continued his recovery, and I threw myself into my work, focusing on a major urban renewal project downtown. I worked long hours, finding solace in the tangible progress of building something new, something real. The sting of Chloe's betrayal had dulled, replaced by a quiet, persistent ache, a scar on my heart. I had moved on, or so I told myself, rebuilding my own sense of self-worth outside the judgment of that poisoned social circle. I hadn't heard a word from Chloe, not an apology, not a check-in, nothing. It was a silence that spoke volumes. Then one Tuesday afternoon, as I was leaving the construction site, my phone buzzed with a direct message notification. It was Chloe. My heart gave a strange lurch, a mix of apprehension and a morbid curiosity. The message was sickeningly sweet, as if no time had passed, as if no bridge had been burned. "Hey Sarah, hope you're doing amazing. Listen, quick favor to ask. I'm applying for this incredible project manager position and they need professional references. I immediately thought of you. Remember how well we worked together on that community fundraising project back in the day? You always said I was so reliable and honest, and I really need someone to confirm that to them. Would you be able to put in a good word for me? It would mean the world." I stared at the message, particularly at the words reliable and honest. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. She wanted me to vouch for her honesty after she had publicly branded me a liar. She wanted me to confirm her reliability after she had demonstrated such casual cruelty. My first instinct was to ignore it completely, to leave her on read forever. My second was to unleash all the pent-up anger and hurt I had been carrying for months. But then I remembered the cold resolve, the quiet promise I had made to myself that day at my dad's rehab. I had to dig deep, not for anger, but for clarity, for a final, decisive assertion of my own truth and self-respect. I took a deep breath, picturing her message, then picturing my dad's frail but determined face. I thought about the pain of being silenced, of being dismissed, of being the bigger person who always absorbed the blow. Not this time. My fingers moved, steady and deliberate, as I typed a calm, measured reply. "Chloe, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm not comfortable being a reference for you. I find it difficult to recommend someone who publicly questioned my integrity and character, twisted personal events to malign me, and never offered an apology or acknowledged the profound hurt those actions caused." I didn't add any emotional pleas, no accusations, just the facts of my discomfort. I sent it. Her response was almost instantaneous, proving she had been waiting, probably expecting me to jump at the chance. "Wow, Sarah, you're being incredibly dramatic." That was just chat drama, you know how things get heated online. You really need to learn to let go of grudges over small things. It was months ago, get over it. Small things, she called it. My father's near death, her public slandering of my character, the destruction of friendships, all small things. That was the moment, the final last-ditch effort. She had proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that she lacked any genuine remorse or understanding of the damage she had inflicted. This wasn't about revenge in a wild, fiery way, it was about quiet justice. I went into my photo library, found the folder, and selected two of the most egregious screenshots from that night, one where she called me manipulative, another where she branded me attention-seeking. I didn't type a single word. No insults, no further explanations, just the two images, stark and undeniable, the digital ghosts of her own cruel words. I sent them. The message delivered. The three dots signifying she was typing appeared, then disappeared. A minute passed, 2 minutes, 5, then finally her profile picture went dim. She had left me on read. Profound calm washed over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in months. It wasn't the triumphant roar of victory, but the quiet, deep satisfaction of having finally, decisively stood up for myself. I hadn't begged, I hadn't pleaded, I hadn't descended to her level. I had simply presented the truth, her own words, and allowed them to speak for themselves. I realized then that I wasn't the bigger person by enduring abuse, but by setting a firm boundary, by refusing to allow her to continue to disrespect me. My world felt lighter, unburdened by the festering wound of her betrayal. I finally felt a deep fulfillment. I had reclaimed my narrative. My new normal was one where I valued my own peace and integrity above maintaining toxic connections. I learned that sometimes the most powerful response is a quiet, factual assertion of the truth, letting the consequences of another person's actions unfold naturally. Months later, a former colleague, someone I occasionally ran into at industry events, made a casual comment. Heard Chloe was really pushing for that project manager role at Synergy. Didn't get it though. Apparently they had some concerns about candor and character references. Funny how things work out, huh? He shrugged, unaware of the deeper significance of his words. I just smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile, and simply replied, "Indeed, funny how things work out." I didn't ask for details, I didn't feel a need to confirm anything. Chloe's own actions had created her downfall, and I had simply chosen not to be complicit in her attempt to escape the natural consequences. I wasn't rewarded by her apology, but by an unshakable sense of peace and a newfound strength in standing quietly, firmly, in my own truth.